Hey there, everyone. I'm Hunter Myers, the host of the Brand Bite podcast and the founding creative director here at Verger Design Co. I am super duper excited to be welcoming Amy Joy to the show today. Amy is an autistic classroom teacher, parent, and parenting coach on a mission to make homeschools and the workplace kinder and gentler for all neurotypes. So as a fellow neurodivergent myself, Amy, I am seriously so excited to have this conversation with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got here in the first place? Like, how did you get into entrepreneurship?
Oh my gosh, it is a long journey, honestly, Hunter. It's been so how did I don't even, what, honestly, at this point, I don't even know how I am anywhere right now. And with COVID, we all just got smashed up and everything just kind of dissolved and then reconfigured itself into what we have now, I think. I knew, so it kind of was the way I got into entrepreneurship was kind of like a process of elimination, just in terms of my life. I knew I couldn't teach full time just because of my neurotype, and I just couldn't like be well and teaching full time. So I just kind of went, okay, what skills do I have? And what iteration of those skills can I like use and bring to the market in a way that will fund my like a roof over my head and like put gas in my car and put food in my kids' bellies and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where I like how I ended up here.
I really like that. And I like that you sat down and were like, okay, like this system isn't working for me. I need to
Mhm.
build something that is working for me. And I think that is such, especially again in the neurodivergent community in particular, like that is such a huge piece of like the entrepreneurial journey, especially even thinking about how people say that businesses should run. And I'm going to definitely ask you about this, like how you run your business differently
Yeah.
as a neurodivergent entrepreneur.
Mhm.
But even there, like it's all about finding what works best for your own skills, your own neurotype, your own abilities. I just love that. So
Mhm.
again, speaking of that, what skills did you pull on and how did you identify those?
Oh, I first thought about, as probably I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, I had like subject specific knowledge. So I had like a skill that pertains to an area that I'm like, okay, well, I could apply this skill to another area. Unfortunately, that skill was not business knowledge. And I think that's fairly common for entrepreneurs, right? Where we have this like skill vertical in our lives that we can draw on and to say, I have this skill that I think is going to be valuable to the marketplace, whatever segment we're talking about. And then it's like, oh, okay, but then I actually have to like do something with it and like figure all this stuff out from here to marketplace is like all of this like question mark. So the skills that I have, obviously I'm a teacher. And I've been a teacher for a lot of years. I've taught special ed, I've taught regular ed, pretty much from K to 12. So I've kind of been there, done it, seen it all. Um, and my special interest, I'm kind of in a weird place, like neurotype wise too, because I'm autistic, and the marker of an autistic person is usually marked as like having social or communication deficits. But I think part of the reason why I was able to mask so successfully for so long is because social skills and communication skills are like my autistic special interest. So I like had this very weird intersection of like having this sort of rote understanding of social, like this sort of autistic social approach, but then also my autistic special interest was social skills. So then I was able to build a lot of like how to make a friend, how to communicate successfully, how to communicate assertively, and all of these pieces. Because it didn't come naturally to me in my life, I learned it, and I taught it to my students. A lot of teachers will just be like, well, try to make friends. If you don't have friends, just try, okay? Try to make friends, with people. And I could actually say, okay, well, here's how you do it. Here's how you actually make a friend. Um, Here's how you talk to your friends. Here's what to do if your friend is upset. Here's what to do if you think you've done something wrong. Here's what to do if you're having conflict with your friend. So that's like a cool skill set, I think. And I think it's one that's really needed. It's a weird, yeah, it's this weird space where everything to me is like a step-by-step. But that's okay, because we need to have some step-by-steps. We need to get some common understandings instead of just being like, well, it's just social, like just be a friend, instead of having it exist in this really like weird liminal space where everyone's making all these assumptions about it. It makes it really much easier for everyone if we all can come together and say, here's our like definition of all these social pieces. So that was my like specific skill set that I have. And I've got some courses, some bullying prevention courses and education. I've got some autism awareness programs as well that I offer virtually and in person and on demand. So that being said, the gap between those skills and the marketplace was a broad one.
And how did you start to bridge that gap for yourself?
I just started trying stuff. Honestly, I think we get into a place where, something I learned as a teacher is like, you have to try it and you have to do a bad job before you can do a good job of it. And, I'm a writing teacher, like that's ELA as my subject, like my thing. As a teacher, other than the social skills, I teach writing. And what I tell my students is just try. You have permission to do a bad job. If you're afraid of doing a bad job, you're not going to do any job. And then then that's no good for anyone. So I took that advice for myself. And honestly, I think teachers do generally a pretty good job of having like an iterative practice, right? We don't know how kids are going to react to stuff. So we just kind of throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. And then we just like reflect, right? So that was pretty baked into, honestly, kind of my life practice already at that point. But I knew the danger actually of over preparing and of like being so worried about like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And I also knew 9 times out of 10, the thing that goes wrong is not a thing that would ever occur to you that would go wrong. So it's like, if I'm not going to be able to accurately anticipate what's going to go wrong anyway, I may as well just try and then see what goes wrong. So that was kind of my attitude. Yeah, just like I'm giving myself permission to make mistakes. And I'm going to waste money. Some of those mistakes are going to be costly of time and of money. And I basically told myself, I'm basically giving myself like a self-directed MBA. That's how I like viewed it for myself, where I'm like, I'm just these next, few months, few years is just like my self-directed business education for myself. So if I think about if I, spend a bunch of money on like a funnel or a landing page or whatever, and it just like collapses or like I forget about it and then it just goes nowhere, that's the cost of my education. So I saw it as being like, this is my education, this is my learning. I can't be so miserly with my time or my money, that I'm afraid to make any missteps. I have to make some big choices. I have to take some leaps, and I know not all of them are going to succeed. And some of them are going to really not succeed. And I just got to be okay with that.
Right. And I love this concept of viewing this like trial and error process, right? That's entrepreneurship. It's just trial and error. I love that you brought up the throw the spaghetti at the wall because I literally use that all the time.
Yep.
So really, really love that. But what I think is so unique about your perspective is that you viewed it like an MBA program. You viewed the expenses, the ones that worked and the ones that didn't, as like actual education. It's like, well, this is what I would have been paying in school. And honestly, getting that hands-on experience probably taught you a lot more than just sitting in a lecture. Oh my gosh. I wish that were something that was actually talked about way more often. Like I want people to start viewing this as an MBA. If you're listening, start
Yes.
viewing this process as your self-taught MBA. That is brilliant.
Teacher says you're allowed. This is your education. Like learning doesn't just have to happen in a classroom. There needs to be an application, and the application is way more valuable than the actual theory of it. I actually usually do it in reverse. So you try something and then you kind of sort it out and figure out what was happening there. That's often how I teach. That's kind of best practice education wise as well, is you just like give them a whole bunch of stuff to like think about, or a video or a picture or some like manipulatives or something, and just like, here you go, figure this out. And then we kind of go backwards and think, what was your process here? What did you do? So yeah, I just kind of applied that to the learning, the business learning.
Yeah. So thinking back then to some of those things that you tried that didn't quite work out, what was that process like for you? What did you experience? What did you feel? How did you move past it as you were learning and growing?
It was, well, and honestly, I need to bring in my marriage and the breakdown of my marriage at this point, because it actually had a different effect than I think a lot of people would imagine in terms of my entrepreneurial journey. So when I actually tried to start a business, when I tried to start a couple of businesses. I've always been, I guess, a little entrepreneurial minded, but nothing's ever taken off because I've just life and reasons. But when I was married, I was very afraid to fail because I knew that there were bills and there was another adult that was counting on my income, and that I knew I would basically need to match my teaching income from my business. If I were like, I basically needed whatever my teaching income was, I needed to match that in however much teaching versus like business building I needed to keep that up basically. So that is like kind of a scarcity point of view. It's kind of like whatever I do needs to pay off immediately. Otherwise we're going to be in the red. And that's so actually like separating, we were a COVID separation where, our marriage was a COVID loss. But moving into my own little apartment and finding that I have like a finger on the pulse of everything that is going on in my life. I don't have any, like, there's no other stakeholders in my life, like adult stakeholders. There's children, obviously, and I need to make sure that I'm providing them the necessities of life. But it's not, I don't have any like board meetings with other people. I can just make these executive decisions myself in my life, which actually does give me a lot more freedom to be a lot more fluid with my time. My flows are my time, energy, and money, and sensory. Those are my 4 flows. And I can find different like ways to use my time and energy to make money. And there's going to be some like financial ebbs and flows as we get, successes and losses. But I'm the only stakeholder in my financial life, which really means I can mitigate against a lot of that. What was your question? Did that answer your question?
I think we got to that point. So what I had originally asked was essentially, when it came time to do this learning, right?
Yeah.
And you had some of those hiccups that occurred
Oh,
where
yes.
it wasn't quite a win.
Oh, yes.
What was that process like and how did you overcome it? And I think that you were that, like you said, that story right there, I think is the kickstart to a lot of this process.
Yeah. And I guess to more fully answer the question you asked, instead of the question that it turned into in my head, when I was married, I just kind of quit because I didn't have that much time and energy to invest fully into teaching full time and parenting full time and running a business full time. So honestly, when I was so at my limit at capacity. When my flows were all at capacity, I just had to quit. But now when I encounter a hiccup and I lose money, or I lose, like, I try an initiative and it just like kind of doesn't like go as well as I'd hoped, I just kind of go, okay, well, how are we going to pivot? How are we going to, like, what's the learning here from my MBA, my self-paced MBA? What's the learning that I can like receive from this? And how can I use that learning to like pivot this to create more success?
Again, I love this reference of the MBA. And I also really like the shift in perspective, because I feel like when you have a separation, oftentimes I think it's viewed as you've lost that security blanket.
Yeah.
But what I like that you have done is, instead of focusing on the loss of the security blanket, you've now kind of shifted that perspective to be, look at this freedom that I gained and now the choices that I get to make. So I think that is such a great perspective to have. And again, highlights right there some of that pivoting that occurs in the hiccups and the mishaps.
Yeah, it would have been really easy, I think, to have viewed it as a loss. I went from, 2,000 square foot house to like an 800 square foot apartment. And my kids are like sharing their little, I actually gave my kids the master bedroom, and I have my like little teeny second bedroom. And just like, one table in the whole place. There's like one little family room. But that has allowed me the financial freedom to be able to explore these other options for myself, in terms of like to kind of manipulate my flows a little bit when I'm not at like maxed out of the financial flow.
Exactly. And I like the idea too. And I think this is something that gets overlooked a little bit when we're starting entrepreneurship. I know that I overlooked it when I started, but the idea of the give and take. It's like, okay, well, I can give up here, I can sacrifice here in order to gain over here for now. And that is not permanent.
Yeah.
I think people, when they get in that space, especially that scarcity space, is like, oh no, if I give this up now, I'm never going to get it back. But it's like, no, you're investing in this other, like you had said, flow that is then going to ideally reinvest in the one that you took from.
Yeah, exactly. And we do, like, there are periods where we do get out of balance. And I was really lucky. After my separation, I sought out counseling, and the counselor I ended up going to actually was kind of like a businessy kind of counsel. It was kind of like, I didn't know this existed. It was like a like a mental health counselor, but then also like a business workflow, like entrepreneur counselor. And I was like, that's cool. But she really helped me to understand, like, you don't have to be in balance all the time. As an entrepreneur, stuff's going to get out of whack. And you can like handle that exactly as you said, Hunter, like, as long as you get back, as long as you recognize you're getting out of whack and you just notice it and you'd be like, wow, this is really out of whack. And then you kind of get back to where you were, or get back to like a more sustainable thing. But it's like, I think sometimes this like entrepreneur rhetoric gets so toxic of like time freedom and this and this and this. And I need to have, time, I only work X number of hours a week, which I guess if that works for some people, that's cool. But it's not always, I don't think, going to be that way. And that some weeks are going to be like down weeks and some weeks are going to be up weeks. And some weeks are the weeks everyone responds to your emails all at once. And you just are like, okay, and some weeks like nobody responds to your emails and you're just like sitting there twiddling your thumbs. So it's just like, as much as we would like to like pace out the work over time, it doesn't happen that way often. And I think it is okay. I did have a conversation like as a teacher, and this is like just my jam. Like teachers are so used to like the up and down, right? Because we have like marking and report cards and stuff. So I have been like this past year, I haven't been teaching full time, but I did take a contract like right at the end of the school year. And I was doing report cards and I just told my kids like, Hey, so sorry about it. But this week is gonna be really out of balance, and I'm just like gonna be struggling this week. It's not gonna be like our best week, probably. So just so you know, but then it's very important to me that after this week, then we get returned to our regular stasis. And we can be upfront about that.
Right. And I love the honesty in
Hmm.
that too. And it's not just honesty with the people around you, but it's honesty with yourself
Hmm.
and understanding like, okay, like just because I'm out of balance this week doesn't mean that I have to stay out of balance. Like I
Hmm.
can recognize it. I
Yeah.
can maybe prepare like you had prepared, like, hey everyone, just so you know, I'm gonna
Hmm.
be a little out of it this week, but we'll get back on track, in the
Hmm.
following week. And I
Yeah.
think that is such an important perspective and principle kind of to bring into your entrepreneurial journey. Just as you said, I mean, we don't see that, that's not what is painted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's important to bring attention to the
Hmm.
fact that what we are seeing online kind of splattered all over the place or in
Hmm.
some of these entrepreneurial communities is not necessarily the reality all the time.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. There's all these pictures of like a lady with a laptop on the beach and like, oh, I'm loving my whatever. And it's like, that okay. If that works for you, I guess, but that seems like extra work. I don't know why you would be doing that. Why are you on a beach? Beaches have sand and sand's like not good for your laptop. But yeah, it's just it's not sexy and it's not like fun and it's not like Instagram ready a lot of the time. A lot of it is just like this, typing on the computer, right? It's just like I actually pitched being on a reality show about disabled entrepreneurs. And they were like, "What's the B-roll? Like what would be your B-roll?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know, like you could just film me like in my apartment and like typing on my computer. Like I have a bird, maybe that's interesting." But yeah, it's just like a lot of entrepreneurship isn't like interesting to watch. And it doesn't make for very interesting like viewing, like just the ins and outs, right? It's when we have a product that's finished, then it's like, wow, that's really cool. But it's like how to get there is this, that the meme with the like the Shiba. Have you seen that Shiba meme where they like that on the keyboard? That's what I feel like is like entrepreneur life 90% of the time.
Right. And it's so important to remember that most of what is happening is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I mean, when we've got a cool product or a new
Mhm.
service that we're launching or we finished a project, it's like, oh yeah, cool, this is great. But this is not that was not what this looked like up until this point.
No, exactly. Exactly. I think that is really important I think it's just really important to recognize like it's a slog, just like everything else. And if we expect that we're going to do something and everyone's going to go like, wow, that's so amazing, like keep going, it's not going to happen that way. You work on something, you almost feel like you're going crazy because you're like imagining something that isn't there. It's almost what's that called? Hallucination. It almost feels like a hallucination where you're like imagining something that isn't there and you're creating that thing into being there, you know, but until it's there, it's just like something in your imagination. And to just keep working on this thing that only you can see is like gets very lonely and it gets hard to keep being motivated if you are looking for extrinsic motivation.
So and I love this point. And a question here for you. What is something that you have done to find some more of that intrinsic and internal motivation? Because I think you're so right. I think if
Yeah.
you are looking for the external validation, if you're looking for people to congratulate, if you're looking to grow this massive following or to make millions of dollars right off the bat, you are in for a potentially very rough ride for a hot minute until you get to that point. So what are some of the things that you have done to stay motivated internally?
Yeah. So I like sticker charts. It's it's like ultimate low tech. I'm a big fan of sticker charts. I actually have because there's to me two sides of this coin. And I think sticker charts honestly solve both of them. And the one side is that I forget what I'm supposed to be doing. It's the executive dysfunction of it all. And that is all I feel like in my experience, that's more challenging than the actual motivation, is that I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something right now. What is it? That's like, I'm willing, I just don't know what it is. So I'm just like trying to like pull up my emails and what's going to spark. But anyway, so you're going to have to write it down at some point in something that's going to remind you. But then the other thing is to celebrate yourself. And that's what I really like about my idea of my MBA, because if you're doing an MBA, you don't expect to be like a business genius in like day 2. It takes like 2 years or maybe even 3 years. So I'm just like, I sort of saw it as like a ramp up that way before I can actually, and you have to gain these skills. You have to be able to like speak that language before you can actually like use it to like get the things that you are looking for and like do the things that you're trying to do. If you don't even know what it's called, right? There's like a big, so celebrating yourself in these little things. I talk to myself a lot, just like out loud in my apartment. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So hooray. So we were talking about, or like, I've got my podcast coming up with Hunter this afternoon. Hooray. And just like every step I do means that I'm more skilled than I was before. And I'm celebrating that. I'm celebrating that internal growth, rather than needing to rely on like an external product or something that people can like cheer for.
Exactly. And the celebration piece is something that I know I myself really struggle with, because I'm like very much goalpost met, next goalpost. Let's go. And I really like the idea of like, especially celebrating the small things, and just making them exciting and making them something and viewing it as like every step you are now like one step more skilled than you were.
Yeah.
The day before or the hour before or the minute before. So I think that's so important to bring up. So aside from like celebrating yourself verbally and the sticker chart, what are some other ways that you have kind of done those celebration pieces?
Oh, good question. I don't know. That is a good question. I honestly, it's just so baked in, just these small things. I don't really do big things because big things are stressful for me. So I don't like them. I just like small things only. I just think about like, I guess, and it's probably related to kind of how you were talking about it too, is like, I have these big goals and I can celebrate the steps, looking backwards. Like you can only really reflect on your journey backwards, but you have to live it forwards, right? So looking backwards, I can be like, wow, like I've gained so much in this amount of time, and something that would take me like 3 hours to figure out what I was, clicking on and how I'm doing, I can just, go in and do it right away. Stuff like that, I think is just so important to keep in mind. Yeah, I don't really celebrate too much. I don't do any big stuff because I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great though to emphasize, like I mentioned, the smaller stuff, because the smaller celebrations are not overwhelming.
Mhm.
They're not something that's going to require a bunch of time or money or energy. Like they're just, as you said, like kind of they've become like a ritual of sorts. Like it's ingrained at this point to have those reminders. Almost like, to me, it kind of sounds like, or what I picture as you talk about it, is like your own little cheerleader within
Mhm.
yourself
Yeah.
that's back
Yeah.
there being like, excellent work, like excellent
Mhm.
job. We did it. Oh my goodness. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's what a lot of us need, especially
Yeah.
as entrepreneurs, when it can start to feel really lonely, or that we don't
Yes.
have people in our corners, or that maybe people are doubting us because the journey that we're on isn't traditional, or when we're doubting ourselves because the journey that we're on doesn't look like the person that we're following on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, RuPaul talks about the inner saboteur. And I think that's a really important concept as well. The idea that there is kind of this internal voice that says, you're not going to make it, it's not going to work, you're doing a terrible job, and that sort of thing. So, to me, what I think is important to keep in mind is that inner saboteur is trying to keep me safe. That's a voice of safety. Um, it's not a voice that's trying, it's not like the devil that's trying to make me feel bad. It's a voice that's trying to keep me safe. And so I can be friends with that voice and say, thank you for keeping me safe. I'm going to keep going. And I don't super need your input on this. But the next time I do, I will let you know. But yeah, I think it's like, it's important to keep in mind that feelings aren't facts, thoughts aren't facts. And we need to kind of keep fact checking. And if we're feeling like the majority of our thoughts are from this place of like scarcity, or from this place of like um, harshness, then that is possibly to show us that we're not feeling like super grounded in like where we are, and we're, it's probably more a need for safety than it is a need for like self-criticism.
Yeah. So I have one more question for you, Amy, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask. And the question is, what is one thing, if you could change one, what is one thing that you would change about the entrepreneurial space?
I would honestly make it more um accessible to a variety of neurotypes. As much as I have been learning the, jargon of this and that, I would really love for it to be something that is a lot more welcoming to a variety of different people with different sets of life experiences and different um just more different people that even now still struggle with um and the amount of might sound a little bit silly, but the amount of like forms and paperwork is really a nightmare for someone with, like me, with massive executive dysfunction. It starts becoming really overwhelming, um, really easily. And just trying to navigate all of that. I wish there was some sort of um I wish there was a person or a bot or something that could like help make things more like where I don't need all these extra skills. I can just come to the marketplace with like what I have. I think a lot of people from marginalized backgrounds don't have the ability to do this like self-paced MBA like I'm talking about. And I think it's really important that we keep that in mind as well. In addition to like talking about mindset and stuff, there is really, there are people who are really struggling due to factors that are outside of their control. And I would really love for this to be able to be something that is a lot more accessible to more people.
Yeah. So I was like, last question. I'm like, no, but now I have a follow-up.
Sure.
What does that accessibility look like? Like if you were to envision it, I mean, I know that you brought up like a bot as an example, or someone there to help, or maybe
Yeah.
limiting forms. Anything else that you can think of that would maybe help someone who wants to make business more accessible for people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, for me, I'm actually part of um, a disabled owned business like thing, like inclusive workplace supply. So which helps with like visibility and like we can pitch to larger companies that we wouldn't be able to like pitch to as individuals. So I guess that would be my advice, would be to find groups of people that are doing like that have your challenges. Um, and just even like doing business with marginalized owned businesses is good business. And I think a lot of big companies are realizing that. And so it does start making sense to have some of these more marginalized run businesses becoming vendors for larger corporations. And very likely there are groups that are kind of in like that are of people who are facing the same struggles that you are. And that's honestly where my growth has really like catapulted, is when I can join groups that are people like me. Makes a huge difference, because then I don't have to keep like explaining myself of like, yeah, there's a thing called executive functioning and I'm really bad at it. And it's like, you probably don't think about it because you're good at it. And, I don't have to like go through that every time. But then also it gives you like more strength as being part of a cooperative in terms of like gaining corporate clients and that sort of thing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Amy, seriously, I have had such a good time chatting with you. Can you quickly tell everyone how they can find you, how they can get in contact with you if they want to talk more? What are all the links? Drop them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is buildingstrongerrelationships.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Building Stronger Relationships. I would love for people, if they want to get in touch, I would love for you to sign up for my email list. I send out a fresh email every week, and it's got my life with autism, top teacher tips for parents and educators. And so you can do that by going to buildingstrongerrelationships.com/email-sign-up. And that's just your quick landing page where you can sign up. And yeah, I'd love to be in touch. If you have an interest in bully proofing your kids or your schools, I'm currently working on a program for teachers. It's called Bully Proof Classrooms. I also have Confident Bully Proof Kids workbook for parents that we're publishing through Amazon.
Oh, how cool.
And yeah, and so that's where I'm working, but I also do the autism ones as well. If you're interested in having me chat with your organization about autism or about accessibility.
I love it. Well, everyone, I'm going to put that information in the notes as well so that you can reach out and connect with Amy. Again, thank you so much for talking with me. I am so excited to see where you go with your journey moving forward and all the help that you're going to be able to provide people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hunter, for having me. And I wish you all the best in your journey as well.